Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the absolute metamorphosis of South Africa's legal system. We're going to trace this really fascinating journey, starting from its deep, complex historical roots and the painful legacy of its past, all the way to its rapidly approaching digital future. It's essentially the story of a nation trying to redefine its very identity through the law. Okay, so here's our roadmap. We'll be looking at transforming South African law, the whole decolonization debate, Africanizing the legal system, globalization and the law, and finally, the digital courtroom. We'll map out exactly how a nation's legal DNA attempts to heal historical wounds while bracing for a globalized, AI-driven future. Section 1. Transforming South African Law, the Butterfly Effect. To really grasp this idea of transformative constitutionalism, the source material uses a brilliant metaphor. Think of a caterpillar changing into a butterfly. It's not just a small tweak, it's a radical, total change in nature, form, and substance. The goal here is to orient society in a completely new direction, leaving behind the severe, systemic violations of the pre-apartheid era and actively infusing the legal landscape with human dignity, equality, and freedom. Now, this transformation has a really fascinating dual nature. It's not just about those first-generation political rights, like your right to vote. The Constitution actually mandates second-generation socioeconomic rights, too. This means the state is obligated to deliver vital everyday services, things like running water, healthcare, and housing. It's the critical difference between a society merely surviving and one that's genuinely flourishing. Moving on to Section 2, the decolonization debate, unfinished business. This brings us to a highly debated topic, decolonization. So, what is it? It involves confronting and challenging colonizing practices that influence the laws, dismantling them, and adapting the system to local needs. Now, while the South African Constitution is clearly transformative and seeks to address past injustices, scholars like Tshepo Medlingozi ask a really crucial question. Is it truly decolonial? When colonizers arrived, they divided society into the civilized and the uncivilized. Has that division actually been erased? And this reveals a profound ideological tension regarding what true decolonization even looks like. Historically, the ANC pursued a transition based on liberal democracy and human rights, which essentially accepted the sovereignty of the settler-created state. But on the flip side, the PAC argued that true post-colonialism required overhauling the societal structure entirely. They focused on African nationalism, the destruction of white supremacy, and the return of dispossessed land. Here's the sticking point for a lot of critics. Because foundational issues haven't been fully resolved, many argue South Africa remains a fundamentally divided society. A big example? Section 25 of the Constitution, which protects private property, and that includes land historically taken by settlers. The land restitution process is painstakingly slow, and it requires compensation. So, anti-colonial scholars argue that because illegally obtained land became lawful in the eyes of European settlers, the current system simply resulted in a constitutional freezing of historical injustice. It really makes you wonder, can a society truly heal if its foundational inequalities are just frozen in place? Section 3. Africanizing the legal system, finding identity. So, how do we make the law actually reflect the people it governs? Well, that's where Africanization comes in. It's a renewed focus on reclaiming what was taken from Africa and fostering a new sense of pride. It's about placing African culture on the pedestal that's currently occupied by the West. This is absolutely vital in higher education and the criminal justice system, which frankly is still heavily rooted in colonial Roman Dutch and English law. There's this growing pressure to restructure things so the system isn't completely disconnected from African values and ways of understanding the world. You can really see a stark contrast between these two paradigms. Western systems traditionally lean heavily into individualism and retributive justice, minimum sentencing and punishment. But an Africanized system incorporates the philosophy of Ubuntu, emphasizing our shared humanity. It focuses on repairing harm through restorative justice, community involvement, apology, and compensation. By incorporating alternative dispute resolutions like traditional communal gatherings known as imbizas, the idea is to create a legal framework that actually resonates with the local population. Section 4, Globalization and the Law, looking outward. But wait, while the legal system is looking inward to heal and find its identity, it simultaneously has to look outward to survive. No nation exists in a vacuum, right? Globalization requires a state to integrate into the global community. The South African Constitution itself actually has a global character. many of its first-generation rights are influenced by Western ideologies, similar to the civil rights found in the U.S. Constitution. Plus, South Africa has a duty to follow binding international treaties, like the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. So the law is constantly walking this tightrope, balancing local Africanization with global integration.
Section 5. The Digital Courtroom. The Future of Law. And that brings us to the technological metamorphosis awaiting the justice system in the 21st century. Digitization is already showing its benefits globally. By moving statutes, cases, and testimony online, we dramatically reduce the cost of physical libraries and litigation. Plus, we help the environment by saving trees and reducing the footprint of massive physical offices. But the reality on the ground right now, the legal profession in South Africa is currently not broadly digitized.
The hesitation isn't just about the technology itself, it's really about the human element. The legal establishment heavily favors physical courtrooms. Judges and lawyers strongly prefer in-person testimony because, well, assessing a witness's demeanor is absolutely crucial to discovering the truth. Prosecutors and defense counsel argue that an online cross-examination just isn't as comprehensive. Aside from some video-linked testimony for vulnerable witnesses like children, physical presence is still seen as absolutely vital. Beyond the human element, fully digitalizing the profession brings massive logistical hurdles. I mean, it's a very expensive process, potentially putting it way out of reach for single attorney or small to medium law firms. Plus, moving everything online introduces severe trust issues between lawyers and clients, not to mention the very real, very scary threats of digital interception, online theft, and cybersecurity breaches. Yet, ready or not, the future is rushing toward us. Scholars outline a step-by-step evolution for this. First, traditional rules are replaced by algorithmic micro-directives. Think of an algorithm like a step-by-step recipe for baking a cake. Though, admittedly, having a machine bake a cake is a whole lot less stressful than having a machine send someone to prison. Eventually, artificial intelligence will simulate human intelligence to assist, and in some cases, literally replace human judges in interpreting the law.
This impending shift prompts a terrifying yet fascinating question from legal scholar Marie-Claire Artz. If we completely dehumanize the judiciary, whose hand holds the gavel? AI systems operate purely on data, but they are currently missing a moral and ethical code, a quality that is inherently human, even if we humans sometimes neglect or abuse it ourselves.
To solve this, Artz proposes a hybrid framework for the future. Imagine a system where humans and machines coexist to administer justice, using AI for pure efficiency while relying on humans for that crucial moral and ethical interpretation. But actually getting to that seamless coexistence, that is going to take an incredibly long time, requiring immense training, patience, and skill from the entire legal profession. So I'll leave you with this final thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. South Africa's legal system is attempting to heal deep historical wounds, decolonize its structures, and restore the communal values of Ubuntu. But at the same exact time, it is hurtling toward a globalized, synthetic reality governed by algorithms. How do we successfully balance the deep, restorative traditions of our past with the automated, AI-driven future of tomorrow? Thank you for learning with us, and keep asking the big questions.